The emergency beacon's crimson pulse bathed the wreckage in bloody light. Brooke pulled herself from the twisted pilot compartment, tasting copper and breathing smoke. The transport's broken spine jutted from Xerion Prime's rust-colored sand like a monument to poor judgment. Another day, another crash landing. She wiped grit from her eyes and assessed the damage with a construction supervisor's cold efficiency. Hull breach along the starboard side. Fusion core offline but stable. Life support running on backup power. 36 hours, maybe 48 if they rationed oxygen. The alien researcher stirred in the passenger section, her elongated limbs unfolding with careful precision. Thane's silvery skin had taken on a pale, almost translucent quality. Not good. Brooke had worked enough mixed-species crews to recognize shock when she saw it. Time to get to work. Brooke crouched beside her. Blood seeped from a gash above Thane's temple, the crimson stark against her metallic complexion. The alien's breathing came in short, measured gasps. "Wake up, princess. This isn't the time for a nap." She pressed an emergency medical pack against the wound. Thane's eyes fluttered open, pupils dilating as they focused on Brooke's face. The transport shuddered. Wind howled through the hull breach, carrying with it the acid bite of Xerion Prime's atmosphere. Brooke had read the briefings. Toxic storms, corrosive rain, atmospheric pressure that could collapse a human lung in minutes without proper protection. Standard Tuesday on a deathworld. That's when she found the first anomaly. The navigation console's memory banks had been wiped. Not damaged, wiped. Professional work. Someone wanted this transport down. She pulled up the emergency protocols on her wrist display. Environmental suits in the cargo bay, assuming they hadn't been crushed. Emergency shelter protocols. Standard evacuation procedures that assumed rescue was coming. Rescue wasn't coming, not to Xerion Prime. Thane struggled to sit upright, one hand pressed against her injured head. When she spoke, her voice carried the musical quality common to her species, though edged with pain. "I remember an explosion. Engine compartment." Her eyes found Brooke's. "We were sabotaged." Brooke nodded grimly. The question was why, and by whom? The storm outside intensified, rattling the damaged hull like dice in a cup. Atmospheric pressure readings climbed steadily toward the red zone. They had maybe 2 hours before the real weather hit. After that, the transport would become their tomb. Time to work the problem. Brooke retrieved her toolkit from the emergency locker. The weight felt familiar, comforting. These tools had built orbital stations, repaired mining platforms, and saved more lives than she cared to count. Today, they would save 2 more. Environmental suits first, then shelter. Then they could worry about who wanted them dead. The cargo bay had partially collapsed, but Brooke squeezed through the twisted metal with practiced ease. Construction work taught you to move through tight spaces, to find the structural weak points and exploit them. She found the suits buried under debris. One intact, one with a torn life support line. Simple repair job. Brooke had patched worse with less. Thane watched her work with growing respect. The alien species was known for their analytical minds, their careful approach to problem-solving. But this human moved with the confidence of someone who had faced impossible odds before. "You treat this like routine maintenance," Thane observed. Brooke didn't look up from the suit repair. Because it is. Different tools, different environment, same basic principles. Identify the problem, solve it, move to the next one. But this is a Class 12 deathworld. The atmospheric toxins alone will kill us if we let them. Brooke finished securing the patch and handed Thane the repaired suit. "So we don't let them." Outside, something roared, not wind, something alive. Xerion Prime's indigenous fauna were another item from the briefings Brooke had memorized. Pack hunters, acid-resistant carapaces, attracted to electromagnetic signatures like damaged spacecraft. The emergency beacon that might save them was also broadcasting their location to every predator within 50 kilometers. Choices. Always came down to choices. Brooke suited up with mechanical precision. The environmental gear felt heavy but familiar. She had worn similar suits on a dozen hostile worlds, places where the air itself wanted to kill you. The key was not to take it personally. Thane struggled with her suit's seals. Her species had different physiological requirements, different pressure tolerances. Brooke moved to help, adjusting the controls with steady hands. The alien studied her savior's face through the helmet's faceplate. Most beings treated deathworlds with appropriate terror. This human worked with the same calm focus she might bring to repairing a broken water heater. "How many worlds like this have you worked?" Thane asked. "Enough." Brooke activated the shelter deployment system. A hexagonal emergency habitat began to unfold from its compact storage unit, smart materials expanding and sealing against the hostile environment. The shelter's construction was pure human engineering. Redundant systems, modular design, built to withstand conditions that would vaporize most species' equipment. Thane watched in fascination as Brooke guided the deployment with practiced gestures. Another roar echoed across the wasteland, closer this time. Brooke sealed the shelter's entrance and activated the internal atmosphere processors. Clean air began to circulate. Thane removed her helmet gratefully, her silver skin regaining some of its natural luster. Now for the real question. Who wanted them dead, and why? "The research data," Thane said quietly. "I was carrying classified files about the Meridian Project. Industrial espionage, maybe, or worse." Brooke pulled up the transport's manifest on her portable terminal. The cargo manifest had been altered too. Professional work, but not perfect. She found the discrepancies, the electronic fingerprints left by whoever had sabotaged their mission. Corporate assassination disguised as an accident. Standard operating procedure in the outer systems. The storm hit with the subtlety of a plasma cannon. Wind screamed around the shelter, carrying debris that struck the walls like artillery shells. The emergency structure held, but the sound was deafening. Through the shelter's reinforced viewport, they watched Xerion Prime's surface transform into a hellscape of swirling dust and acid rain. Visibility dropped to 0. Nothing could survive out there. Nothing except what was already adapted to it. The first impact against the shelter's wall was deliberate, calculated, something testing their defenses. Brooke checked her weapon, a basic plasma pistol designed for close-quarters work. Not much against the indigenous predators, but better than harsh language. Thane moved closer, her musical voice barely audible above the storm. "On my world, we have legends about beings who thrive in places of death. Warriors who laugh at environments that would destroy entire civilizations. More impacts. The shelter's structural integrity held, but the creatures outside were learning, adapting their approach. Legends," Brooke said dryly. "Right." But as she spoke, she was already working. Modifications to the shelter's power distribution, rerouting energy to the defensive systems, strengthening the electromagnetic barriers that would keep the larger predators at bay. Construction work. Problem solving, same as always. Thane watched her companion work and began to understand something profound. This human didn't see Xerion Prime as a deathworld. She saw it as a construction site with unusual environmental challenges. The difference was everything. Hours passed. The storm raged with mechanical fury, but the shelter held. Brooke's modifications proved their worth as larger predators tested the perimeter and found it unpalatable. During the quieter moments, they talked. Thane shared details about her research, the political implications of the data she carried, corporate warfare in the outer systems, industrial secrets worth killing for. Brooke listened with the attention of someone accustomed to complex logistics. Every construction project was a web of suppliers, contractors, and competing interests. Corporate sabotage was just another variable to account for. When the storm finally passed, they ventured outside together. Xerion Prime's surface steamed in the aftermath, toxic vapors rising from puddles of acid rain. The landscape looked like the surface of some hellish moon, beautiful in its own way. Brooke led them toward higher ground, her scanner tracking the beacon's signal. Rescue would come eventually. Someone would notice the missing transport, the failed check-in, but it might take days. They climbed through terrain that would challenge a seasoned mountaineer, Brooke navigating by instinct and experience. She had walked on worlds where the ground itself was unstable, where every step was a calculated risk. Thane followed, her respect for this human growing with each impossible obstacle they overcame. Her own species valued intellectual achievement, careful planning, risk assessment. This human operated on a different level entirely. She made the impossible look routine. They reached the ridge as Xerion Prime's twin suns broke through the cloud cover. The view was spectacular and terrifying. Acid seas stretched to the horizon, their surface broken by islands of volcanic glass. The storm had passed, but others were building in the distance. Time to set up the long-range beacon. Brooke unpacked the emergency transmitter, a piece of military surplus that could punch a signal through most atmospheric interference. The device required careful calibration, precise adjustments to account for local conditions. Another construction project. As she worked, Thane stood guard, her weapon drawn. The ridge offered good visibility but little cover. If the predators found them here, they would have to fight or die. Simple mathematics. The transmitter came online with a satisfying hum. Brooke adjusted the frequency, boosting the signal's strength until it registered green across all bands. Someone would hear it. Someone would come. They just had to survive until then. The attack came at sunset, when Xerion Prime's sky turned the color of old blood. A pack of the indigenous hunters, their acid-scarred carapaces gleaming in the dying light. They moved with purpose, intelligence, surrounding the ridge with practiced coordination. Brooke counted 8 of them, maybe 10, hard to tell in the fading light. She checked her weapon's charge indicator, enough for maybe 30 shots. Not nearly enough. Time for improvisation. The emergency beacon's power core could be overloaded, turned into an improvised explosive. The ridge's geological structure was unstable, weakened by centuries of acid rain. A shaped charge in the right place could bring down half the slope. Construction work in reverse. She explained the plan in rapid, efficient sentences. Thane understood immediately, her analytical mind grasping the physics involved. They had perhaps 10 minutes before the predators completed their encirclement. Time enough. Brooke rigged the charges with the same methodical precision she brought to any demolition job. Timing would be critical. Too early and they would bury themselves. Too late and the predators would overrun their position. The creatures began their final approach as the last light faded from the sky. Their electromagnetic signatures blazed on Brooke's scanner, hostile contacts closing from all directions. She waited until the lead predator reached the predetermined mark. Then triggered the charges. The ridge collapsed in a cascade of stone and dust, taking 3 of the hunters with it. The others scattered, their pack coordination broken by the unexpected obstacle. Time to move. They rappelled down the far side of the ridge using emergency cables, the dust cloud providing perfect concealment. Below them, Xerion Prime's surface stretched away into darkness. Behind them, the surviving predators roared their frustration at losing their prey. They found shelter in a formation of volcanic glass, a natural cave system that offered protection from both the elements and the indigenous fauna. Brooke set up a perimeter using motion sensors and proximity alarms. Basic security measures. Thane watched her work with something approaching awe. The human had turned a desperate survival situation into a series of manageable technical problems. Each obstacle had been met with practical solutions, improvised from available materials. "On my world," she said quietly, "we would call you a miracle worker." Brooke secured the last sensor and activated the network. Red lights indicated active coverage of all approaches. "Just construction work," she replied. "Different tools, same principles." But as she spoke, she was thinking about the sabotage, the professional nature of the attack. Someone had wanted Thane's research badly enough to risk an interstellar incident. The data must be worth more than either of them realized. Corporate warfare, the oldest profession in the galaxy. They took turns standing watch through the night. Xerion Prime's darkness was absolute, broken only by the distant glow of volcanic activity. The motion sensors remained quiet, but Brooke knew the predators were still out there. Waiting, hunting. When dawn finally came, it brought with it the distant thunder of atmospheric engines. Rescue was coming, vectoring in on their beacon's signal. A corporate security vessel, heavily armed and built for hostile environment operations. Brooke watched the ship's approach through her scanner, tracking its descent vector. Professional work. The pilot knew what they were doing. The vessel touched down on a relatively stable section of the valley floor, its landing thrusters scorching the toxic soil. A deployment ramp descended, and armed figures in environmental suits emerged. Rescue, or elimination team. On Xerion Prime, the difference might be academic. Brooke and Thane approached carefully, weapons ready but not raised. The lead figure gestured for them to advance, scanner readings confirming their identities. Supervisor Wade, the team leader, announced over the comm channel, "We've been looking for you." The evacuation proceeded with military efficiency. Medical checks, equipment recovery, debriefing protocols. Standard procedure for a corporate asset extraction. As they lifted off from Xerion Prime's surface, Thane found herself seated across from Brooke in the transport's passenger compartment. The human was filling out incident reports with the same methodical attention she had brought to their survival. "Different tools, same principles. I owe you my life," Thane said quietly. Brooke looked up from her paperwork, her expression unreadable. "Just doing my job." But there was something else in her eyes. A recognition of shared danger, shared trust. The beginning of something that might become more than professional cooperation. The transport broke atmosphere, leaving Xerion Prime's toxic storms behind. Through the viewport, the deathworld's surface looked deceptively peaceful, rust-colored continents shrouded in chemical clouds, beautiful in its own way. Thane watched the planet recede, thinking about the humans sitting across from her. On a world designed to kill, Brooke had treated every challenge as a construction project. Problems to be solved, obstacles to be overcome. No fear, no hesitation, just competent, methodical work. The galaxy was full of species that feared humans, that called them deathworlders, apex predators, monsters in human form. But sitting in that transport, Thane understood the truth was simpler and more profound. Humans didn't survive impossible environments because they were monsters. They survived because they were builders. The transport jumped to hyperspace, carrying them away from Xerion Prime and toward whatever came next. In the passenger compartment, two beings from different worlds shared the silence of survivors, bound together by trust forged in the crucible of a deathworld's fury. Outside the viewport, the stars wheeled in their ancient patterns, indifferent to the small dramas played out on distant worlds. But in the space between those stars, relationships were being built. One problem at a time. Just like construction work,